you are. That's why when people are really taken up with something that someone is in or doing, check their background. Why is it bothering you? Why are you seeing more of that than everybody else? Maybe that's what you are. Maybe that's why the church preach so much on sin, because they are in sin. Righteous people don't make an issue about sin. That's why they want to know about Jesus. And now let's see what he's going to do with this woman here. Because everybody, the multitude was making an issue. They wanted to stone her. Why did they see it? Because that's what they were. That's why people that's always preaching about the devil, they are the devil. Okay, here we go. Revisit your day. You are either going forward to imagination or you remain imprisoned to your senses. If you're going forward, you're going to tap your imagination. If not, you're going to go backwards by remaining imprisoned to your senses. To go forward to imagination is to forgive. To go forward in imagination is to what? Forgiveness is the life of imagination. You want to know why? Because see, you can't forgive someone until you imagine and seeing them as just. And the reason why some of you have a hard time forgiving someone because you're prisoned to your senses. And as long as you are a prisoner to your senses, you lack imagination. And because you cannot tap that imagination for that individual, but you don't know what he did to me. He robbed me. He stuck me up. He hurt me so bad. He stole my heart. You don't understand what he did to me. You don't know what he did to me. If you only knew, baby, all you need is imagination. Go back, revisit that day and reconstruct it and see that individual whole. But you can't see them whole until you become whole. You cannot even make them whole until you can get a hold of imagination to begin to see them as God sees them, perfect, whole, and complete. Someone came to me today, who did some real ugly things. And not a member of the church, so don't try to start guessing. But an individual, a minister of the gospel, and said, I really want to ask for your forgiveness. And I was in the middle of doing this lesson. I said, oh, don't even worry about it. I said, small things separate small people. I said, I ain't even giving it no more thought. He says, yeah, but you meant so much to me, and I really want to ask your forgiveness. And I did some real things that just was not correct and said some things. I said, listen. I said, we're beyond that. And I was looking out of my side window while I was thinking about it. Because if I would have held him and been trapped in my senses, I would have never came into this. I would have lacked imagination. I would have kept trumpeting what was in my senses. He said, I'd like for us to get together. I said, oh yeah, real soon. We'll have lunch or something. We'll get together and do some things together. That can only take imagination. What did he do? I really can't even really tell you. I would have to dig so far in the past and go into the graveyard and try to scratch the dust off the tombstone and reread it. And because I don't live there, I don't keep it fresh. When a person is rehearsing dates and all of what has happened in their past, they're nothing but the madman of Gadara. You have nothing but legions in you. You standing by the tombs, rehearsing your past, the graveyard where records are kept. I left those skeletons where they were. I said, I release you. I said, I love you, Doc. I said, I really do. I love you. I've grown beyond that. And see, some of you got loved ones in your life. You got to grow beyond them and love them and use your imagination and begin to see them whole. See that sister as a sister in Christ and that brother as a brother in Christ, and begin to look and say, you're God's gift to me. You're finding your purpose and your chief aim. Only when that thing in me had to break down, then I could break down this thing in you. And then only then can I now say unto you, thy sins are forgiven thee, because I've forgiven myself. Now you can step back and form a churches where you were bitter with your former mentor and sit there and love them and even drop a nice sizable offering and say, oh, I just bless you and love you and thank God for you and the work of God's grace that you've done in my life. Why? Because you went back and revisited that day. That's called revision. Now, forgiveness is in fact experiencing in imagination the revised version of the day. So a person that hurts you, you just say, come here, let me just revise this version. Because they're just a verse that needs to be revised. Whenever you get bad news, say you got bad news today, don't let your day end with that bad news hanging in the air. But sink into meditation and step back into the theater of your mind and walk out on the stage of your imagination and rehearse that and change the end of that news. And you'll begin to find that the effects will start to deteriorate. And all of a sudden they'll come back with a reverse decision. It says, you know, we sent you a letter and told you that you were terminated, but for some reason something came up and we need to call you back. And people say, you know, they've never done anything like this. How did this happen? Because you turned around and did a revised version. You are masters of your own destiny. Jesus! Woo! Don't accept the news that just anybody gives you. You don't have to receive it, and don't give it your power of belief. And if it doesn't have your power of belief, it has no Lord to sustain it. So according to your faith be it done unto you. Begin to see it another way and begin to step back, take a seat, purchase your $8 ticket and sit down in the theater of your mind. Go take yourself to lunch by yourself at Central Park and just sit down in the theater of your mind and just start walking up to the stage of your imagination and start seeing it as God sees it and begin to create the revised version. Some of you are upset mates because you've been living in someone else's misery. And all life is saying, revise the version. Some of you are upset individuals because you've been living in the ghost of your mother and your father. Some words they've spoken to you.